Dear old Sloat. What a marvelous surprise it was to learn that you're now in Bern. So close and working for our release. Your nice Swiss diplomat friend, Dr. Roblo, is visiting with Aaron while I hammer this off. First of all, I'm fine, and so is Louis. It's crazy how comfortable we are here. Only the other American internees at the Excelsior Hotel in Siena remind us of the war and our perilous situation. Speaking of which, Sloat, Aaron is still playing with the notion of staying on here, war or no war. Between his old friends, the Archbishop, and the Chief of Police, he's being treated like exiled royalty. He also feels, if needed, he has one sweaty little ace in the hole. He once converted to Catholicism. Did you know that? Back in the 20s. Well, he dropped it fast, but he still has the documents, so he refuses to worry about being Jewish. Between that and his position as an American journalist, he feels safe here. It's his home, he's too old to move, etc., etc. He has an answer for everything. It's maddening. I really don't know why I should be so upset about Aaron. It's his life. I came to work for him just to be nearer you. In those simple, lost days when my only worry was a messed-up romance. You were a fool not to marry me in Paris when I proposed. How I loved you. Oh, if one only understood sooner that things happen once and then roll away into the past, leaving one marked and changed forever. Well, looking back is to no avail. Think of something to do about Aaron, my dear, please. He can't stay on alone in an enemy country. I'm a lot thinner in the enclosed, and at least I'm smiling. Isn't Louis cute? Love, Natalie.
Stunning girl.
Yes, she is. Antoine, thank you so much for carrying our letters.
My pleasure. Dr. Jastrow was charming. And I hope they'll all be out by March or April.
March or April?
Now, I must report to your minister. Will you have dinner with me later, Leslie?
Oh, thank you, Antoine, but some other time. Tell me, do you know a Jacob Asher?
Of course. An important philanthropist. A German Jew. Now a Swiss. Why?
Well, I've never met the man, but he's invited me tonight for cocktails. Most insistent.
Well, Leslie, enjoy yourself.
Guten Abend. Ich bin Leslie Sloat.
Why don't we talk in English?
All right. I'm Leslie Sloat. I'm the first undersecretary at the American legation here in Bern.
Yes, I know.
Ah, have we met?
I asked someone about you because you kept staring at me.
My apologies. You remind me very much of someone I know.
Really? I'm Selma Asher.
Oh.
Yes, this is my father's home.
Ah, I've yet to meet him.
Papa will be down soon. Something came up. He's deeply involved in refugee work. My friend said you were transferred from Moscow for being too partial to Jews.
I wish I could claim such martyrdom, but in fact, my transfer was routine. And Actually, I'm glad to be where the food's good, the lights go on at night, the guns don't go off.
Don't be ashamed of what you have done. Can't you realize how that distinguishes you in your foreign service?
Thank you. I'm afraid it distinguished me in quite the wrong way.
Mr. Sloat, I'm Jakob Asher. I must apologize for not having been able to greet you.
No need, no need.
Excuse me.
Pleasure to have met.
Mr. Sloat, you are wondering why I invited you.
Yes.
The truth is there is someone who expressed an interest in meeting you. Father Martin, this is the American First Undersecretary Leslie Sloat.
I'm very pleased to meet you.
I'm honored.
Father Martin has greatly helped our work in the Jewish Refugee Council.
No. One can do so little.
You, of all people, cannot say that.
No, please.
Father Martin is also a German citizen.
Uh-huh.
Well, perhaps I will leave you two to talk.
Thank you. I would prefer that we talk elsewhere.
All right.
Perhaps I'll walk with you back into the city.
Walk? It's miles.
No. It's only a couple. It's good exercise.
Yes, I suppose.
Shall we go?
So. Nein. Mein Mann ist angedreht.
Entschuldigen Sie bitte.
Oh, tut mir leid, wir werden nachher miteinander sprechen, ja?
Vielen Dank.
Dankeschön.
I'm afraid I have to be going.
Well. Good night. You must write your friend about the girl you met in Bern who resembles her.
I'd like very much to see you again.
Oh, no. I'd only depress you. Reminding you of your lost love. Goodbye.
Other stories coming out of Russia and Poland through Heslu
Stories?
about the Jewish massacres.
Such things is difficult to prove. Massacre victims can't talk.
Yet in Moscow, one is told you did obtain some documentary evidence.
Yes, I did. Certain photographs of a particularly gruesome nature from the region of Minsk.
One's also told that you placed them in the hands of the New York Times, Heslu.
Right again. And the story, all 10 lines of it, ended up on the back page.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yes, it is. Particularly as it seems to have had a very depressing effect upon my career.
Yep. Would further evidence interest you? Conclusive evidence of new, unbelievable atrocities.
The government would be very interested.
Your government? Do you like the cinema, Heslu? I'm very partial to the films myself, although I confess it's a frivolous waste of time.
Yes, I go to films.
Perhaps you'll join me one evening here at the Palace. As you could see, a Bing Crosby film's coming soon. He's my favorite. Would you enjoy that?
Yes, of course, certainly. I'd be delighted to join you.
Excellent. I shall call you. So, until then.
Until then.
In the wake of the American naval disaster at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese have continued to press their attack. On Christmas Day, Hong Kong falls, while in the jungles of Malay and Burma, the Japanese continue their remorseless advance as Singapore prepares for a last-ditch stand. American positions in the Philippines crumble. MacArthur falls back to Bataan. The enemy takes Manila. The Japanese seem unstoppable, and by early February are well on their way to making the Pacific Ocean a Japanese lake. It is then that the American Navy finally strikes its first counterblow. A carrier task force under Admiral William F. Bull Halsey aboard the Enterprise steams southwest into enemy waters to bombard Japanese strongpoints in the Marshalls and Gilberts. The returning armada is given a tumultuous welcome at Pearl Harbor. Journalists hail the attack as a resurgence of American power in the Pacific, the turn of the tide.
All ahead 1/3.
All ahead 1/3, aye, sir. Engines answer ahead 1/3, sir.
I'm keeping this short, gentlemen. You will remain standing. Let's get one thing straight. The purpose of all the hoopla out there is to boost civilian morale. The truth is, Hirohito isn't losing any sleep over what that raid did. We took part in a nuisance raid. Unfortunately, we were not much of a nuisance. As to what the Northampton did, the less said, the better. Mr. Gregg, all shore leaves are canceled. We sortie at dawn for gunnery practice. Questions? That is all.
That's a bill, Captain.
Come on.
Admiral Spruance, his compliments, sir.
He invites you to dine with him at 1800 and listen to your friend Alistair Tudsbury's special broadcast from Singapore.
Accept with pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Dear Pug, this is from a well-meaning friend. I realize what war can do to a marriage, but I hate to see it happen to a model couple like you and Rhoda. Why don't you write and ask her about that very tall man she plays tennis with? His name begins with a K. And that isn't all she plays. She's been seen in all the wrong places with him at the wrong times, and everybody who has ever known you two is talking. Unless you do something PDQ, you can kiss your marriage goodbye. A word to the wise from a well-wisher.
Good evening. This is Alistair Tudsbury, broadcasting from Singapore. As this broadcast reaches you, Japanese heavy artillery is raining destruction on this great island city from across the Johor Straits. The lives of hundreds of civilians are lost each day to this merciless bombardment. I come to you tonight in part because the military authorities now concede that Singapore's one hope lies in letting the democratic world know exactly how desperate our situation is. If help is ever to arrive, it must come now. So in conclusion, I believe that even at this late date, the tide can be turned. I'll gamble my overstuffed old hide on this, but not the person of my daughter Pamela, a clever and lovely young woman who assists me in my work.
So off she goes tomorrow with the women and children. She told me a story not 2 hours ago that I want her to share with you. Here then is Pamela.
My story is a short one. For the past 2 weeks, I have been working at a troop hospital as a volunteer. Today, a badly wounded man took me aside and gave me a thing called a Mills bomb, a sort of grenade. Ma'am, you've been very nice to us. If you think a Jap is about to rape you, ma'am, he said in a very charming Aussie accent, just pull the pin and you'll know nothing more. I have only one thing to add. I leave under protest. Good night.
Good night from Alistair Tuxbury in Singapore. You've just been listening to a special broadcast from the studio station.
The fall of Singapore will be worse than the fall of France. It means the collapse of an entire world system. Our side needs a victory out here.
We do.
He's an able correspondent, that fellow Tudsbury. You know the daughter, don't you? Yes. She sounds like a very admirable young mother.
Yes, she is.
I'll begin, as assured. My partner and I
Leslie Sloat.
Hello? Here's Selma Asher. Will you take me to dinner?
Good God, yes. When? Where?
I'll pick you up in half an hour.
Oh, all right, half an hour.
I've been talking my head off. Does Natalie talk so much?
Oh, more, much more. She's very opinionated and very argumentative.
Then I think we're really not much alike.
Well, I'm rapidly forgetting the resemblance.
Truly. Poor me. That's the only reason you're interested in me.
Not once you spoke half a dozen words.
Then you're not sorry I called?
Selma, I'm delighted and I'm flattered. Selma, the priest that I met at your father's house.
Father Martin?
Yes. Would information that he's offered be reliable regarding the mistreatment of the Jews?
I would think so, Leslie. Father Martin is a very good man, even if he's a German. Do you like to dance? I dance abominably. I've done it so little. But I would like to dance tonight.
Then by all means.
Meanwhile, in North Africa, in a series of lightning strikes, the German panzer divisions under Field Marshal Rommel have recovered nearly all the ground won by British forces at the turn of the year. In the Pacific, the Japanese have begun a series of major attacks, with new fighting reported in Java, Borneo, Surabaya, and throughout the entire Dutch East Indies.
The one you saw is so terrible. I can't think about the war tonight. I won't. Tonight was very nice. Thank you.
Care to come up for a drink?
I can't. No, I can't.
May I call you?
If you want to.
I do.
Well, fine. Now, I've done two bad things since I met you.
What was the first?
Asking a man to dinner.
Kissing me was the second?
Not you, Leslie. Kissing a Gentile. I've not kissed many Jews either. Now I really must be going.
And we'll be calling you.
Good night, Leslie.
And what is your evaluation of this material, Les?
I believe it speaks the truth. The Germans are committing mass murder, perhaps genocide under the cover of war. I believe it's an authentic document of grave import.
And what sort of action do you recommend?
I think delegation should send off an urgent summary cable to Secretary of State and to send the document by special air courier.
Augie here thinks differently.
Indeed, I do. A kindly description would be a compassionately motivated fraud.
Let's hear your reasons, Augie.
Apart from the fact that your source, the one Jacob Asher, is obviously tainted. Look at the document itself. Sheer fantasy.
Why?
Why? Cabinet-level government men meeting and calmly discussing some evil plan, and then, mind you, putting it in writing? Come on now. I mean, I admire your compassion, Les.
Never mind my compassion. I'm very well aware of who Dr. Asher is. And as for the text, nothing is more German than reducing an inhuman plan to writing. Read Mein Kampf.
I have read Mein Kampf.
So have I.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sir, if it is authentic, as I'm sure it is, then the Germans are committing a crime that's almost beyond human imagination. And I believe that President Roosevelt can turn world opinion against the Germans with that document.
Okay, Augie, many thanks.
Anytime, Bill. Les, I do admire compassion.
I'm sorry, Les, but I'm with Augie. That stuff is the pipe dream of an ignoramus making up horror stories and doing a bum job.
May I ask why you say that, sir?
I'm a railroad man, Les. I was before I got this job. The rolling stock of all of German-held Europe couldn't handle this. You're talking here about millions and millions of civilians, Les.
Sir, at the risk of seeming compassionate, may I respond?
Go ahead.
I admit the train part looks big. A sweep of a dragnet through all of Western Europe, spilling into Poland and occupied Russia. But, sir, the point is, most of the Jews are already there, in Poland and occupied Russia. They don't have to be moved very far, if at all.
All right, Les. How would you go about authenticating this document?
What would you consider authentication?
Oh, geez, I don't know. Give me something. In the meantime, put this thing in maximum security storage.
I will, sir.
Maximum security, incidentally, is not the New York Times cable desk.
Sir, no one will release this unless you authorize it.
Okay, then. And Les, I'm sorry about Augie. He's a bit of a jackass. But it never hurts to hear the other side of the story.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
April. We'll be leaving in April.
That is now the official word.
To April.
To April.
Good heavens, I shall barely have time to finish my division of Constantine. Why, I may even have to stay on here in sleepy old Siena and let Natalie and the baby go on home without me.
Oh, my dear Professor. Real coffee?
The Swiss chargé d'affaires brings Bernard Berenson little gifts. Our generous friend was kind enough to share half a pound with me.
Oh, worth the trip to Siena. One begins to understand now why the famous Berenson has decided not to go back with the rest of the Americans.
Creature comforts aren't everything, Bernard. Even BB suffers shortages. But he's decided, as he says, to ride out the storm at anchor. He thinks it will all end well, meaning that your side will lose. Of course, Bernard is an expert in Italian paintings, not warfare.
Dr. Freud might call it wishful thinking. Still, whichever side wins, such a prominent person need not worry.
Prominent Jew?
Mrs. Henry, victory softens harsh wartime policies. That is my profound personal hope.
Dr. Beck, how much do you really know about what's happening to the Jews?
In Italy, nothing is happening.
And elsewhere? What about the stories coming out of Eastern Europe that your soldiers have been massacring the Jews?
Maria, we'll have more coffee with our brandy in the next room. Werner. Cigar, Werner?
Thank you. I take it, Mrs. Henry. Glad your question was not merely provocative. But when you ask me whether the German army has been massacring the Jews, then I respond that this is a lie. The army has not only refrained from atrocities, but has at times intervened to protect the Jews from the local populations. That is God's truth as I know it.
Oh, put it down there, please, Maria.
This is excellent brandy, Professor.
Thank you, Werner. I had the foresight to lay in a few cases back in 37.
Dr. Beck, have you ever visited a concentration camp?
Never mind.
Mrs. Henry, I'm not saying our regime does not have many regrettable things to answer
Then I
for,
would
but
prefer to change the subject. Natalie Werner is our guest. You and your baby are alive simply because he rescued you. Besides, my idea of staying on here initially is nothing of his problem. Bernard Berenson is a very shrewd and very worldly man, but even he too...
Damn Berenson! Suppose Germany occupies Italy, or suppose Mussolini decides to ship all the Jews to the Polish ghettos. I mean, it's incredible. It's so childish to even consider taking such risks.
But it's I alone who would be taking those risks.
Please, Professor, Mrs. Henry, if I have provoked in any way this quarrel,
Nonsense, Werner. I, for one, am convinced you haven't got a single anti-Semitic bone in your whole body. You serve a detestable regime, and whether you are right to do that is a very large question. But Natalie, if you think there is any less peril for the Jews in the United States than there is in Germany or Italy, you're the childish one, not I.
Aaron, you're drunk.
Nonsense. I've lived here in a fascist country for more than 10 years, and I found more peace than I ever did in that dollar-chasing hurly-burly back home. If the war should take a hopeless turn, need I remind you, we're losing now on all fronts, then I foresee a defeated America that could be uglier than Nazi Germany. I foresee horrors, Natalie, that will eclipse the Civil War. A bloodbath of region against region, race against race, every man's hand against his brother, and all men's hands against the Jews.
Professor, you surprise me with your penetrating insight about America.
Of course, Natalie, I understand you want to take Louis back to America, but I believe we may have a negotiated peace this year, and I, for one, would welcome it.
Welcome it? Welcome peace with Hitler?
Yes, even with Hitler. The longer the war goes on, the worse it'll be for all the Jews behind the Nazi lines, and in the end, the whole of civilization may come crashing down in flames.
Aaron, we're fighting against tyranny for freedom.
Fiddlesticks! This war is about who rules next, who fixes the currencies, who dominates the markets, who seizes the hegemony which the British Empire has lost. Oh, I suppose if we marshal all our industrial powers, we may eventually crush the Germans. But to what purpose? There are good and bad things in all nations. The hegemony can be shared. Oh, I know you won't go home without me, Natalie, and of course I will leave. I never said anything else. But I will not be treated like a soft-headed old fool simply because I considered staying on. Please don't take that tone with me again.
Mrs. Henry, I consider your uncle's view of the war lucid and inspiring. He gives to all this stupid carnage a theme, a direction, a hope.
Dr. Beck, Aaron loves to take any side of an argument, especially over wine.
Oh, really, Natalie?
But peace with Hitler? Who can believe a word Hitler says or have faith in any paper he signs?
That is not an insoluble problem.
Exactly. The skin of the tyrant is not a steel plate. So history teaches us.
I must tell you, my old and trusted teacher, I have considered many times into the dawn the ethics of tyrannicide.
My baby gets fed now.
Let me thank you for the best dinner I've had in months, Mrs. Henry.
Well, we probably do owe you our lives. I'm not unaware of that, so...
No, please. You spoke with the grasp of thucidity.
Ah, Bernard, it was only a rush of angry words.
No, not at all. There are good things and bad things in all nations. The hegemony can be shared. Brilliant. Why, it restores one's faith in the possible brotherhood of mankind. What a profound tribute to the Jewish spirit.
Oh, you're too kind.
Professor, would you consider coming to Rome and talking to the press correspondents of neutral countries. Only neutral countries. None of Goebbels' propagandists or Gaida's hacks.
But what on earth would be the point of that?
Your views on the war would command attention. They would have great impact.
No.
I can tell you, they would encourage the better elements in Germany.
Oh, no, Werner, I couldn't possibly do that. I mean, I should be pilloried on my return home. And Werner, please forgive poor Natalie. Even an animal mother fears for her baby.
Oh, please, Professor, it is most understandable. And now I must bid you good night. And thank you once again for a grand evening. Professor, I shall be pressing you yet again to share your prophetic insight with a suffering world. Fair warning.
I am not a prophet, Werner, nor even the son of a prophet. A pleasant journey to you.
Thank you.
And now, I have heavy news. Singapore has fallen. That the mighty bastion of empire, which held out so long against insuperable odds, has honorably surrendered to spare its civilian population from further useless slaughter. And so, let us go on into the storm and through the storm.
You have just heard Prime Minister Winston Churchill speaking from London. In his brief message to the Commonwealth and Empire, Mr. Churchill called the surrender an honorable one.
When an empire dies, it dies like a cloudy day, without a visible moment of sunset. The demise is not announced on the radio, nor does one read it in the morning paper. What was Singapore? Singapore was the city. Singapore was the naval base. Singapore was the bastion of the empire. But at the bottom, Singapore was a narcotic myth, which dulled the pain, while the grip of white Europe on Asia was amputated. And now the colored Malays have new masters with colored skins.
Dr. Schmote.
It's Selma. I'm in a phone booth.
Selma, are you all right? Why haven't you been returning my calls?
Look, my father found out about our evening together. I promised not to talk to you again. I must, however. That man we talked about, Leslie, don't mention his name, gave me an urgent message for you. About authentication.
All right. Where can we meet? When?
Feldstrasse Bridge. Now.
I'm coming.
Father Martin has arranged a meeting with a man high in the German legation.
The German legation? That's fantastic. Who?
He wouldn't say it. He wants you to meet him at 6:30, Sunday evening, in front of the postal office on the Alderstrasse. From there, he will take you to the rendezvous. He begs you not to breathe a word to anyone about this.
Selma, thank you. This is very important. I'm sorry I had to involve you.
I suppose he decided I'm a safe messenger since I'll be gone so soon. I never see you again, you know.
I don't understand.
We leave next Monday for America. My father is moving his business. But the real reason we're going is that I'm to marry an American. A lawyer in Baltimore. Quite orthodox. Papa has arranged it.
You're doing this to please your parents?
Does it make any difference? I'm doing it. Leslie. I remember you always.
I'll never forget you.
Yes, you will. You've had so many adventures. You'll have so many more. But now I've had my one. Goodbye, Leslie. I don't know where all this Father Martin business is leading. But please take care. I've never seen a more frightened person.
Sloot.
Father!
On the Russian front, Adolf Hitler's order to stand or die is obeyed. The massive Soviet counterattacks slaughter more than 200,000 enemy soldiers. But somehow, Hitler's armies manage to hang on. Some pullbacks are forced, but the line holds from Leningrad to the Black Sea. And as the Russian counteroffensive begins to fade, and the spring thaw turns the land into a sea of mud, a triumphant Adolf Hitler summons the inner circle of his high command to supreme headquarters on the Eastern Front. Colonel General Franz Halder, now Chief of Staff of the German Army. Major General Armin von Roon, his Chief of Operations. Field Marshal Wilhelm List. Field Marshal Fedor von Bock. General Friedrich Paulus. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt.
Heil Hitler! Meine Herren Feldmarschalle, Gruppenführer Rattenhuber bittet um die Sonderausweise. Danke.
The winter battle in Russia is ending. My order, to stand or die, saved the Wehrmacht.
Mein Führer, it was a great military decision.
Reichsmarschall Hermann Goering, commander of the Luftwaffe, the powerful German Air Force, one of Hitler's oldest and most trusted Nazi associates.
We will annihilate the Bolshevik Empire.
If not for your iron will,
Lieutenant General Alfred Jodl, Chief of Operations of the OKW, Hitler's supreme headquarters command.
Be echoing through the streets of Germany.
Exactly, mein Führer. The greatest
Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, Commander-in-Chief of the OKW.
to give such an order to his Grand Army. And when he allowed the retreat, the Russians pursued him all the way to Paris.
My life's aim has not changed since I wrote it down in prison 20 years ago in Mein Kampf. I will seize the living space in Russia that we won in 1917 and was swindled out of by the Versailles Treaty. Russia is the heart of the world land masses. He who dominates Russia dominates the world. With the fall of Singapore, the British Empire is in receivership. The world imperial system is broken up. America is paralyzed by our devastating U-boat campaign and by the victorious march of Japan. All the land masses of the earth, 150 million square kilometers, are at hazard. It is a moment that comes once in 1,000 years. Now is the time to seize the initiative, throw in all our forces, and in a huge new offensive, wipe out the entire defense potential remaining to the Soviet Union. This final campaign will be called Case Blue. The German people trust me. My soldiers trust me because I am one of them, a common foot soldier. Any general that does not have faith in me, I will dismiss, dishonor, and crush. Then I will find others to fight and win. Case Blue.
Top secret urgent serve from Admiral Halsey.
going to the White House.
Admiral, the president is reported sick and bad.
I know. Lean forward, sir. Take a deep breath and hold it. Bronchitis again. If he'll only rest, we may avoid pleurisy this time.
I shall make him rest, Admiral.
I'll behave. Above all, no smoking. I said I'd behave. And make sure he takes this.
Yes.
Some rest, Mr. President. No cigarettes.
Thank you, Ross. Franklin.
Those boys on Bataan. I failed them. I had to order MacArthur to leave. I need him. But it broke their spirits. 10,000 soldiers lost their lives on that barbaric death march, Eleanor. 10,000. And that brave handful still holding out on Corregidor. Beyond rescue.
Franklin, you must keep up your own spirits. It will be a long war.
Will it? I see nothing but darkness and collapse everywhere. The Japs are cutting the Burma Road. British prestige in Asia is gone. There's a big new German offensive building in the east. What I really fear is Germany and Japan joining hands across a prostrate Russia. Or Stalin making a separate peace to save his neck.
This is the fever talking, Franklin. It's not like you.
A victory. A victory in the Pacific. We need a huge victory now.
Yes?
Mr. President, will you see Admiral King?
You're resting, Franklin.
Tell him to come in.
Admiral?
President, I regret this intrusion. I'll be brief. Tomorrow, at this time, we will bomb Japan. What? And this is the first I hear it's tomorrow? Admiral Halsey's carrier task force is moving into position now to launch a squadron of Army B-25 bombers under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Doolittle. From well outside carrier plane range, the force is undetected.
Army bombers? Off carriers?
The strike will hit military targets in Tokyo and other cities. The bombers will fly onto a base in China. The Chinese are alerted and ready for them. The hazards are high, but we expect to achieve total surprise.
Those aviators. What brave men.
Well, they'll give Hirohito something to think about. A turn. A turn. Yes. I think of those young pilots, and I think of Longfellow's words. Humanity, with all its fears, with all its hopes of future years, is hanging breathless on your fate.
April 18th. 1942. 0800 hours. Task Force 16, led by William F. Bull Halsey, aboard the USS Enterprise, and 15 other warships, including the USS Hornet. 16 Army B-25 bombers lashed to her flight deck, lie deep within Japanese waters, 624 miles east of Tokyo.
Here, Admiral, you're all wondering where we're taking all those B-25s that are over there on the deck of the Hornet. Gentlemen, here is our destination. This force is bound for Tokyo to avenge Pearl Harbor and Bataan.
Henry, is this good war making? Or is it just a showy stunt?
That depends upon how the Japs react. My hat's off to those Army aviators, though.
Oh, yes.
The price of the raid will be steep. 17 of the total of 80 Army aviators will be killed or captured. 15 of the 16 aircraft, fuel tanks exhausted, will be lost as they crash land in China. The raid will have almost no impact on Japan's war production or military capability. But the Doolittle Raiders' heroic deeds and their soldiers' deaths will not have been in vain. The Tokyo raid sends spirits soaring on the home front and around the world.
Radio Tokyo conferma danni causati su case, ospedali, ambienti culturali. Questa è la prima incursione nemica su Tokyo dall'inizio delle ostilità. Gli intercettatori giapponesi hanno risposto immediatamente all'attacco confermando l'abbattimento di 9 bombardieri.
Where did the planes take off from? Why, from Shangri-La, ladies and gentlemen. From Shangri-La.
You mean to
In the aftermath, the Japanese High Command decides that the impudent Americans must be taught a lesson. There will be no more Doolittle raids. After much discussion and debate, Japanese strategic planners finally decide they will gamble everything on an all-or-nothing roll of the dice. The inferior, battered U.S. Navy must be lured into a final fleet action and annihilated. And so the two Axis partners, at the peak of their strength, turn their backs on each other. And as the German army launches Case Blue and begins the long march to Stalingrad, the Japanese Imperial Fleet prepares for the most decisive engagement in the annals of modern naval warfare, the Battle of Midway. SS Colonel Karl Adolf Eichmann, party number 899-895, SS number 45326. A fanatical Nazi, the Gestapo's expert on Jewish affairs, Eichmann is chief of Section 4B4 of the Reich Security Main Office. His primary responsibility, the organization and execution of SS Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler's final solution.
Obersturmbannführer Eichmann, surely the Reich Security Main Office realizes Italy is not an occupied country. It's a sovereign nation, a full military ally. And these Jews you wish to ship east are still Italian nationals.
Herr Dr. Beck, haven't you ever had a virgin?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
The principle is the same. Lots of soothing words, disarming talk. Then at the proper moment, after the first time, no problems.
I'm not entirely sure that is a useful parallel, Herr Eichmann. Most Italians like the Jews, or at least feel sorry for them. Even Mussolini himself.
The Italians are not to be taken seriously. It is the Führer's unshakable will to cleanse the continent of Jews. Italy will be no exception. But to return to the principle, you must get Italy to hand over some Jews, however few and on whatever basis, at once. As soon as that line is crossed, resistance to the Jewish policies will crumble. Oh, yes, yes. Once the Jews are physically removed, their wealth remains behind for confiscation. When your slimy Italian politician gets a taste of that revenue, oh, you'd be surprised how quickly he will embrace the Führer's vice policies. It's happened in country after country.
With all due respect, Herr Eichmann, I cannot imagine what basis I might propose that would result in the Italian government turning over its citizens.
Fortunately, I can. You see, the way to start is with the Italian Jews who are already in Germany. There are precisely 118 of these delightful people. Now, you will propose that Italy takes charge of all German Jews who have fled here, while Germany takes control of all Italian Jews on Reich soil.
I see.
I hope you do.
I have to point out, Herr Obersturmbannführer, I will be asked exactly where these 180 Jews will be resettled, what they will do there, and in what circumstances.
Very well. Write whatever you want. Nothing will ever come of it.
That is not how the Foreign Service operates, I'm afraid. We've been very factual.
Very well, Herr Dr. Beck. If you like, I'll be glad to tell you precisely where the Jews will go and what the disposition will be by direct order of the Führer. If you like, Herr Dr. Beck.
That won't be necessary, Herr Obersturmbannführer.
Old fellow, do you happen to have a spot of brandy in the office? I've already driven over 200 kilometers this morning. I've had no breakfast. I would tell you this. You can look for a very positive effect on your career once you pull this off.
Well, I'll do what I can do for you, Herr Eichmann. But The Italians will have the last word. I can't help that.
So, you can't help that.
I now request from you an explanation of the Jastrow case.
The Jastrow case?
You have sequestered in Siena a 70-year-old stateless Jew, Aaron Jastrow, a prominent author from the United States, his niece, and their infant. You have written to them, you have telephoned them, and you have visited them. Yes?
I don't know what you're implying, Herr Eichmann. I have made no effort to keep any of it secret.
We know you studied in the United States and that Jastrow is your teacher.
Is that why you are protecting the Jew?
I am not protecting him. I am hoping to use him.
Oh? In what way?
As you yourself have pointed out, Herr Eichmann, Herr Dr. Jastrow is a prominent American author.
Yes, Herr Dr. Beck?
Well, that is exactly it. I am hoping he will make a series of broadcasts in which he will picture the Germans and the Japanese as deprived and misunderstood proud people, and the Allies as fat cats clutching riches gained by armed force. He will picture the whole war as a useless bloodletting which should be stopped at once by a sharing of the hegemony. His own brilliant phrase, he used it in my presence. Such a suggestion of world leadership being shared, coming from such a prominent Jewish author, could have great impact in America. To weaken the war effort and encourage a peace movement.
When will Jastrow be making his first broadcast?
That's not definite yet. It's a question of persuading him, which takes time.
Really? Why should that be? Persuading a Jew is simple.
To be effective, it has to be done of his own free will.
Jews will do whatever you want them to of their own free will. However, I understand you now. Jastrow is your teacher. He's a fine man. You don't want him upset or frightened. It isn't that you are coddling or protecting a Jew. It's just that you think you might catch more flies with honey. Yes?
I am sure that my approach is correct.
Yes, providing you get some results before the war is over. Tell me, Herr Dr. Beck, is your family here with you in Rome?
No, they're at home in Stuttgart.
How many kids do you have?
3.
Boys, girls?
Yeah, 2 girls, 1 boy.
Oh. Oh, please, please. Oh, how beautiful. And with a fjord, too. Oh. Girls are so sweet. I had 3 boys. No luck on girls. You know, no matter what, I always try to get home to see the kids. At least once a week, even if it's only for an hour. I suppose you are as fond of your kids as I am of mine.
I love my children, Herr Eichmann.
Good. Right. Well, let's do some straight talking, shall we? Can Reichsfuhrer Himmler expect a progress report fairly soon on those 118 Jews?
I'll do my best.
Excellent. Oh, I'm so pleased I could come here and we could thrash this out. You have a heavy responsibility. So do a job for the Führer. Of course, you understand, Herr Beck, this whole Jastro business is not kosher. It's not kosher at all. So tell the old Yid to make his broadcast quick and let the opera put him away with the other Yids.
But I have a guarantee of safe conduct back to America as part of the American Journalist Exchange.
But how can that be? The American journalists have already left Italy.
I delayed their departure myself. We tied it to a mess in Brazil. But sooner or later, that is bound to clear up.
But you did manage that delay. You see, Beck, when you want to be, you can be a real live fire. Well, good luck, Herr Dr. Beck. Heil!
Heil!
Exerzieren! Anhalten!
Call these SS men? They're marching like gypsies! Like Chinamen! It is the kind of parade to put on for Reichsführer SS Himmler! You're playing like street beggars! I want them drilled. Drilled until they drop. I come back at 1500 hours for another inspection. If there is no improvement, straight to the Russian front. Front line. The whole lot of them. Birkenau.
Zu Befehl, Herr Kommandant.
Was war denn das für eine unglaubliche Scheiße, die Sie hier veranstaltet haben? Nimm mich halt damit her!
Treibt die Leute mehr an!
Bitte Ladung.
Klinger, is this what Reichsführer SS Himmler will see tomorrow?
Working them night and day. Herr Commandant, I'm flogging them like dogs.
Flogging? Shoot the 5 slowest ones. I authorized you. They'll bear up the rest. Where are my 60 blockhouses?
Number shortages, restrictive rules?
No excuses, no shortages. Requisition whatever you need. All rules waived. One rule. 60 blockhouses up by tomorrow at 12 noon. Do you understand? Or you will pay. And they will.
So Befehl, Herr Kommandant.
An die Arbeit, Mates! Bitte! Mit den Balken da!
If I am finished, Sammy, so are you. So are all of you. Kaput! To the gas!
Herr Sturmscharführer, we can speed up the work. We have ideas.
Let's hear.
Rudi, see how our roses are growing. Smell.
Is my adjutant here?
Yes. Hauptsturmführer Schwarz, too. Upstairs in your study. For lunch, the sauerbraten, your favorite.
No lunch, no time.
The Klinger in Birkenau has gone crazy. He asked for trucks to speed up his job. I squashed him good. Prisoners are horses, I said. They walk.
Give him trucks. What else?
Why did the damn fool wants floodlights on his job tonight? All night long. Floodlights.
Let him have them.
That's an air defense rule. I make the air defense rules.
Call central supply?
Right now. Zu Befehl, Herr Kommandant.
Great.
Much, much better. Just like machines.
Program?
Ja, hier, Hauptsturmführer Schwarz, auf Befehl von Sturmführer S.
Nice job.
The printing shop outdid itself.
Die Konstruktion der Baracken, die...
Aerodrome, trooping of colors, band serenades, honor review.
So der Unterscharführer klingt
good.
Klinger.
Gruppenführer Kammler himself will do the map talk at breakfast.
Of course, grabbing the bows. Architect's office, motor tour.
Alle für die Konstruktion der Baracken notwendigen LKW sofort erhalten. Die Bauarbeiten sollen heute Nacht unter Flutlicht ablaufen.
Special action before lunch. Who is responsible for this idiotic change?
Die Konstruktion der Baracken, die notwendigen Panzer...
The Railroad Directorate. They insisted, Sturmbannführer, on getting the empty train back in Oppeln by noon. Maybe if you telephone...
Schwarz! Ruf zurück! Out! Special action from beginning to end. Before lunch. What kind of appetite will our guest have after that? Are you insane?
Commandant, I tried. The empty train. The Railroad Directorate insisted...
Sind es Reichsführers SS-Business? Understood? I'll throw the whole Railroad Directorate into Block 11. And you too! You stupid Schwein! Dauernd gibt es Schwierigkeiten mit dieser Reichsbahn. Anscheinend bin ich von lauter Vollidioten umgeben. Wenn man nicht alles selbst machen kann, beliefert! Verdammt nochmal! Hauen Sie ab! Zitate!
This Himmler visit is making us all nervous wrecks.
We'll all be glad when this is over.
He doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, only drinks. It's all army.
Maybe I will have some lunch.
Of course, Woody.
Schwarz? Special action. All in order?
100%, Kommandant.
If one thing goes wrong, one thing, it's my neck. Mine.
It's a select transport from Amsterdam. They've been well treated. It'll go smooth. Smooth as oil.
It had better.
A hard thing to watch, all the same.
Orders. He wants to see a whole action from beginning to end. He watched one in Russia, didn't approve. Crude business. They made them dig their own mass graves, he told me. Then mowed them down and buried them. Clothes and all. Here, of course, we are more practical, more humane. Still, have a glass of brandy. I'm very curious to see how Himmler will take it. He's tough. But
Commandant, never before have I dared ask this. Suppose Germany loses the war.
it's going, Sammy?
Twice as many men, thanks to the trucks.
This was an idea. Just the side towards the road.
A Russian foreman.
Russian? He's no Russian. He's a Jew swindler like you. Think I don't know?
Reichsfuhrer SS Heinrich Himmler, Nazi Party number 14303, SS number 168. Son of a Bavarian schoolmaster, Himmler joined the Nazi Party in 1923, took over the SS in 1929, and in 1934 became chief of the Gestapo, speedily building it into one of the most feared state police organizations in the world. And by the outbreak of the war in 1939, Himmler was in undisputed control of a virtual private empire. A dangerous fanatic, second in power only to the Führer, and widely regarded as his possible successor, Himmler's prime responsibility is the carrying out of Adolf Hitler's racial policies, calling for the extermination of 11 million men, women, and children, the final solution of the Jewish question in Europe.
Смотри! Ауа! Давай, давай! Чего смотришь, давай! Давай, давай! Nicht so faul! Weiter jetzt! Никто не смотрит по сторонам. Копай, копай! Куда смотришь? Копай! Не разговаривай! И вперед иди! Вперед! Держать линию!
This installation will be doubled westward. Total capacity, 200,000 prisoners for the new factories.
It will be done, Reichsführer. Tremendous drainage problems to the west, Reichsführer.
An SS officer does not recognize difficulties. He overcomes them. How this is to be done is your worry, not mine.
Jawohl, Reichsführer.
You have done much here in a short time. Yeah.
Danke schön, danke sehr. Ja, nicht und das haben wir dann am anderen Tag dann noch. Das glaube ich auch. Reichsführer ist ganz glücklich. Sicher. Ja. Sicherlich, Herr Major. Sehr gut aus. Ja.
Noch einen Durst?
Zum Wohl. Ich danke Ihnen. Hier, sicher. Der Sauerbraten ist sehr gut.
Ja.
And after lunch, the special action?
Jawohl, Herr Reichsführer. Special action.
Sie brauchen es nicht selber zu tragen.
Dit is het werkkamp Auschwitz. De bagage zal straks naar de huisvestingen gebracht worden. U hoeft het nu niet mee te nemen.
Wenn Sie sich einmal hier eingelebt haben, Dann werden Sie Ihre Talente in einem Formular eintragen. Es gibt genügend Arbeit hier für Sie alle. Ehrliche Arbeit wird Ihnen und Ihren Familienangehörigen eine Menge Ärger ersparen.
Later moet u op formulieren invullen wat voor werk u doet. Een goede dag werk zal problemen voor u en uw familie voorkomen.
Zuerst aber werden Sie sich alle zu einer hygienischen Dusche in unserer Desinfektionsanlage begeben. Und anschließend gehen Sie dann zu Ihren Notquartieren.
Nu moet iedereen naar die ontsmettingsafdeling voor routinehygiëne. Daarna naar de huisvesting.
Zuerst aber werden wir einige kräftige Männer und Frauen zum kurzfristigen Arbeitsdienst auswählen.
Nu zullen we een aantal zonderlui uitkiezen. Tijdelijke werken.
Jetzt gehen Sie hier links zu den bereitstehenden Lastwagen und wir bitten Sie dort aufzusteigen. Das wär's.
Nu moet iedereen links daarop gaan.
Isn't it wonderful, Herr Reichsführer? So peaceful. The disinfection. And over here, the undressing huts. Towels and soap. shower heads or the windows?
And this door?
Leads outside. Disposal.
Don't they suspect? Not yet.
That's why the SS. We take no chances.
Separate Umkleideräume. Los, weiter nach links. Männer nach links und die Frauen nach rechts, bitte. Folgen Sie den anderen. Nee, lass mich doch. Mach das Zähne zu. Da wird wirklich doch so machen. Weitergehen! Los, los, weiter! Hier rüber! Männer nach links! Los! Frau nach rechts! Geht es los! Keine Zeit dafür! Links, so weiter! Los! Hier rüber! Männer nach rechts!
Who are those prisoners in the striped suits?
Choose. The most timid, the most nervous ones, picked out when they arrived. Then they get a choice. Bullet in the head at once, for this duty.
We get a few. They don't last long, of course. They go to the gas, too. In time, they help.
Very practical.
Weitergehen!
Alsjeblieft, meneer. Alsjeblieft.
gaan, u moet verder gaan, u moet doen wat ze je vertellen en het kind mag niet huilen.
Ja,
Gaat u
maar
toch
daar,
verder
kijk, daar gaan we naartoe. Daar gaan we naartoe. Kijk, een bloem. Een bloem. Kijk, niet huilen, lieverd. Niet huilen, lieverd. Kijk, die mag je hebben. Die mag je houden. Die mag je houden. Ja, kijk. Niet huilen hoor, nu blijf wel. Ik ben mijn moeder. Ik ben je mami. Alles zal goed zijn. Ja.
Los, weiter, Männer nach rechts! Nur nach rechts! Gehen Sie weiter, gehen Sie weiter!
Reichsführer, now it's better to observe from over there. Please come with me.
Abteilung, Stellung nehmen, Laufschritt, Dalli! Auf einen Steig rechts und links, keiner darf entkommen.
Now at least it will go fast. Would the Reichsführer care to come in, have a look, and listen? It's quite safe.
like a synagogue, I always say.
So, what's next?
Around and back, Reichsführer.
We've already had a special action this morning. May I speak frankly, Reichsführer?
This is our greatest problem, disposal. I've told Berlin over and over that burial is no answer. Not on the scale Colonel Eichmann projects for special action. And what about the others? It's not only the Jews. You already have over 20,000 Polish politicals that will have to be dealt with. And the gypsies. More and more are brought in every day.
Crematoriums?
Of course, crematoriums. But they remain pretty models in the central building board, Reichsführer.
Notes.
Quicklime. The bacteria count in the water here is already endangering the health of my sis. I say again, Reichsführer, disposal is the problem. Berlin is ignoring it.
I shall issue orders to override all projects in this province for labor and materials. The construction of crematoriums will take precedence even over IG Farben.
Thank you, Reichsführer.
Use your best construction crews. When crematoriums are finished, liquidate the crews.
Understood, Reichsführer.
The request of your medical unit to perform special sterilization experiments on Jewish women. Granted.
Great news for our medical staff.
You have given me an honest look at Auschwitz. You are doing your best under tough wartime conditions. I promote you to Obersturmbannführer. I shall say goodbye to your charming wife and be on my way. You will not see me to the airport. We have too much work to do.
Obersturmbannführer? Children.
What a charming little girl. Do you like a flower? Flower, yes? Here is a flower. Come to me.
We have a new job. Arbeitskommando Crematoria.
Crematorium. For ourselves.
Never. It's possible to escape. Even from Auschwitz.
I simply don't understand the necessity for this dinner, Natalie. What kind of information could this baby doctor of yours have that could possibly interest us?
I told you, Aaron, you didn't have to come. He invited us both.
Well, it's 40 years since I came to a proper Sabbath meal, so we may as well hear what's so urgent.
Professor, thank you, Signor Sacerdote. It's a very long time since I put on one of these.
להדליק נר של שבת.
ברוך אתה השם אלוהינו אמן. Good Shabbat.
Good Shabbat.
All right, Natalie. We will take the baby to the bedroom. Don't worry. It's all right. Let Miriam take care of him. She's better than a governess. When did you last see your husband?
It's almost 2 years now. You know he hasn't even met his son.
This Brunello is very fine, Dr. Castelnuovo.
From our own small vineyard. Mrs. Henry, I asked you here this evening because there are some things better not spoken of at the office. I have been in touch with Avram Rabinovitz.
Avram?
How are you acquainted with Avram Rabinovitz, my good doctor?
My son-in-law and I partially finance the sailing of the Redeemer.
And I have a good report for you. They reached Palestine unharmed.
You sure?
Slipped through the British blockade.
Excellent news, Dr. Castelnuovo.
And Rabinovitz, what about him?
He made his way back to Marseille. That's his base. He's there now. Mrs. Henry, why didn't the two of you leave with the other American journalists? Rabinovitz is very puzzled and concerned. He has asked about this repeatedly.
We were temporarily detained.
But why?
Reprisals. 3 German agents in Brazil, posing as Italian journalists, were arrested. And so the 3 of us...
German agents in Brazil? What can that possibly have to do with you? You're Americans.
That makes no sense.
None whatever, I agree. Our State Department is pressing the Italian government through Bern to send us to Switzerland at once. I am not concerned.
I am.
My niece finds it hard to accept that our government has 1 or 2 things on its mind besides our release. But we have further protection. Protection of rather unusual nature. What do you say, my dear? Shall we confide in these delightful new friends of ours?
As you wish, Aaron.
The first secretary of the German legation in Rome is an ex-student of mine, Werner Beck. He has been a very good friend.
Then why doesn't he help you with all this nonsense about Brazil?
He has. He's been burning up the lines to Berlin. He assures us that our release through Switzerland is only a matter of time.
Do you believe that? My guess would be that this same Dr. Beck is preventing you from leaving Italy.
Oh, how preposterous!
Why? What would there be in it for him?
You asked the right question. It's to his advantage to have the famous Dr. Jastrow trapped in Italy and dependent on him. In what way? I'm sure you will find out. Now I have a message for both of you from Avram Rabinovich. He says, get out while you can.
Don't you think I want to get out? But how?
With us, Mrs. Henry. Get out with us. We are arranging with Avram to go to Palestine. The whole family, all of us.
Aren't you overreacting? This is Italy, not Germany.
Dr. Jastrow, only last week we heard in the synagogue the fascists are planning to round up all Italian Jews on Yom Kippur.
Once collected, will be handed over to the Germans to be transported to the east.
Doctor, my good friend the Archbishop assures me that the Vatican intelligence net is the best in Europe. If such a thing were even remotely possible, I promise you he would not have kept it back from me.
Possibly. But the Church has much property and influence to protect in Germany and Italy. We Jews had better look out for ourselves.
You have taken me into the bosom of your family, and I assure you we are warmly grateful for it. But I feel we must go now. Come, Natalie, fetch the baby.
Don't be polite, please. Go ahead and read your mail.
Your kindness has not gone unappreciated, Werner.
Please, Professor, I enjoy very much being able to bring you your mail.
The Arch of Constantine, it arrived safely. Oh, just listen to this, Natalie. The Arch of Constantine, your best book yet. Classic stature, certain book club selection. Honored to publish such a fresh and seminal work. Well, isn't that splendid news?
That is good news, but not all the good news.
Sloat, our friend at the American legation in Bern. He has absolutely no idea when this Brazil business is going to get straightened out.
Yes, but all that is quite out of date. May we have lunch? Otherwise, there's so much to discuss, I'm afraid we may forget to eat. What a lovely view. Won't you be sorry to leave it behind?
Are we leaving it behind?
That is why I've come, Professor.
Then you have our releases?
Not exactly. Almost as good, however. Professor, Italian radio wants to put you on the air. You and other famous enemy aliens, Berenson, perhaps Santayana.
Dear me.
Well, Dr. Beck, what has that to do with our release?
If the professor will simply come to Rome and record a leisurely 2-hour interview or 4 half-hour broadcasts, the Ovra will allow me to arrange in advance 3 exit visas and tickets for a Rome-Zurich plane. The Brazil business will be set aside, and you will be on your way. You won't even have to come back to Siena. So, how does that strike you, Dr. Jastrow?
Well, I confess I'm rather bewildered, Werner. Would they want me to discuss something in my own field of work? Constantine, for instance?
Oh, no. They want a philosophical view of the war, simply showing that not all the right is on one side. You remember what you said, Dr. Jastrow, on the occasion of my last visit? That would precisely fill the bill.
But I had far too much wine that night, Werner, and Natalie had provoked me. It was just a bad-tempered outburst.
Oh, but, Professor, you have a great original vision of this world catastrophe. And that theme of sharing the hegemony is perfect. I'm sure you would not only please Rome Radio, but impress your countrymen as well. And to state matters bluntly, you would get out of Italy at once.
Well, how about Berenson and Santiana? Have they agreed to this?
The Italian radio people consider you the key personality. Once you agree, they are sure the others will follow suit.
Then neither of them knows anything about this yet.
No, Werner. I couldn't possibly attack my own country on enemy shortwave. Surely you can see that. I'd rather rot here in Siena.
There's also the question of Mrs. Henry and her baby rotting here. And then there's the more serious question of just how long you can stay on in Siena. I've made a long trip 2 ladies before you. I didn't expect a rejection out of hand. I thought I'd earned your confidence, Professor.
What is the question of our staying on in Siena?
By the Ovra pressure never lets up on me, Mrs. Henry. You realize you belong in a concentration camp with the rest of the alien Jews? I was reminded of this very pointedly when the broadcasting idea first came up.
Well, I can't fathom this. Surely we're guaranteed eventual passage to Switzerland, aren't we? How can Rome Radio blackmail me into wrecking my reputation? Just be firm, Werner. Tell them to put it out of their minds. I won't even consider it.
That, I must tell you, is a grave statement, Professor.
Nevertheless, it's my answer. It's final.
Your car, Dr. Beck. I'll walk with you. He'll do it.
Do what? The broadcasting?
Yes, he'll do it.
Mrs. Henry, his resistance was very strong.
These explosive reactions pass. When does Rome Radio want him?
That's not definite, but what I must absolutely have from him at once is a letter consenting to make the broadcast. That gets the hounds off my back and starts the wheels turning. The wheels of your release, Mrs. Henry.
You'll have the letter by the end of the week.
I would rather bring it back to Rome with me now. I would even postpone my return.
I can't press him when he's in this mood. Please understand. I promise you, the letter will come.
I must count on your good sense, then.
You can count on my concern for my baby.
The greatest pleasure for me would be to see you all off to Zurich. I shall be waiting anxiously for that letter. Goodbye, Mrs. Henry.
I just couldn't help it, Natalie. His proposal is outrageous.
You shouldn't have turned him down flat. You should have stalled.
Possibly. I'll never make those broadcasts he's asking for. Never. He took my outburst far too literally. No matter how badly the State Department has treated me, I still love my country. I will not go on the air for the Axis, disgrace my scholarship and mark myself a traitor. They can kill me if they like, but I won't do it.
Then we're in real danger, Aaron.
Well, that may be. But the first thing I want you to do, my dear, is to draft out a letter to Werner. Tell him that I apologize for my outburst and that I'm beginning to lay out 4 broadcasts, but be terribly vague about the completion date. Then I want you to go and talk to that young Jewish doctor, Castelnuovo. His plans for leaving Italy might take on a new relevance.
My God, Aaron, this is a change.
Well, I really haven't quite bargained for adventure at my time of life. Making a dash for it might seem a bit far-fetched. But I don't like Werner's new tune. But the important thing is to get you and Louis out of danger. So let's set about it, shall we? Of course, the Ovra may well be watching Castelnuovo, so it may be best for it to look like an office visit. take the baby with you.